Massive, raw, unapologetic. These concrete giants define an era in Philippine history, brutalist architecture. But what role do they play today? Brutalism came to be after the Second World War. With a lack of resources and a sudden boom in population, there was a need for housing and the reconstruction of buildings. From the classics ornamented architectural styles like Art Deco and Art Nouveau, buildings now showed up with less decor and a lean towards functionality. They were raw and it showcased the use of glass, steel, and concrete. In fact, the word brutalism came from the French term béton brut, meaning raw concrete. This style came to the Philippines during the American occupation. As an integral Allied outpost in the Pacific, our country became one of the most devastated after the war, and most pre-war architecture was lost. The funding and overall influence by the Americans played a key role in the reconstruction. A new roster of architects would be trained and receive degrees in the US, and schools would be established which helped in the professionalization of the field here in the country. One of the brutalist buildings that still stands as of today is the Pacific Machines building in EDSA. Anyone who's ever passed through this part of EDSA has likely spared it a glance without really knowing what it is. If you're coming from the north, sandwiched between shiny new car dealerships and huge billboards, it's a marker of what EDSA once was. Along the bustling artery of EDSA in San Juan stands a curious concrete landmark that has long caught the eyes of commuters: the Pacific Office Machines building, more affectionately dubbed by many today as the Brutalist KFC. To the untrained eye, it may appear like a series of massive wedges of concrete stacked against each other. But to those who look closer, it is one of Metro Manila's surviving monuments to brutalist architecture, a reminder of a time when raw material in bold form defined the urban landscape. The story of this building begins in the mid-1970s, a period of rapid modernization of the Philippines. Commissioned by Pacific Office Machines Incorporated, a pioneering distributor of typewriters and calculators. The structure was designed to embody the company's forward-looking ethos. Architect Antonio Heredia of Antonio Heredia and Associates conceived the building as a sculptural interpretation of the very machines that defined the firm's business. Its jagged profile, with angular planes jutting out into the EDSA skyline, has often been described as resembling typewriters stacked upon one another, a clever, almost playful reference to the building's identity. Constructed of thick, poured-in-place reinforced concrete, the Pacific Office Machines building embraces brutalism's core principles: honesty of material, monumentality of form, and an almost fortress-like presence. The facade, devoid of ornament, instead dramatizes light and shadow with its sharp angles and recessed openings. Tenants and builders have remarked on the sheer density of its walls, so solid that even creating a new doorway required weeks of chiseling through its heavy buhos concrete. Inside the building was no less distinctive. The company adorned its walls with reliefs of early machines, proud emblems of its role in shaping office life in post-war Manila. At one point, an aquarium featured brightened its stairwell, a surprising touch of whimsy within such austere concrete shells. The floor plans were designed primarily for office use, with multiple small office floors stacked above, while in recent years the ground level has been repurposed for retail, most notably housing a KFC branch, the reason that the building has earned its modern nickname. Over the decades, the Pacific Office Machines building has remained under the stewardship of its original company and affiliates. Even as the city around it has changed, its raw concrete facade, now weathered by time and smog, has become both a subject of nostalgia and a landmark of resistance against uniform glass and steel towers. Today, it is frequently featured in architectural surveys, online forums, and photography essays as one of the few surviving brutalist icons along EDSA, a building that refuses to blend into the background. What makes the Pacific Office Machines building so compelling is not only its architecture, but also its symbolism. It reflects a time when corporate headquarters sought to embody identity in stone and concrete, when architects like Heredia were willing to experiment with bold, sculptural massing, and when a business could stake its claim to modernity with a permanent, expressive landmark. Though casual observers may know it only as the Brutalist KFC, this building tells a much richer story of commerce, creativity, and concrete, and of the machines, both typewritten and architectural, that once promised to shape the future of the Filipino workplace.
As someone who sees beauty in everything, I have much fascination for brutalist architecture. I see the beauty in its simplicity and bareness. And even in its minimalism, it still radiates grandeur in its forms. It still gives a feeling of intimidation and stoicism.
Well, I find this style very beautiful and jarring at the same time. Even though it lacks the color and the ornamentation, I think the beauty really lies on the forms and shapes. This makes it very monumental and intimidating, but not really hostile at the same time.
Brutalist architecture is bold, raw, and expressive. It shows honesty in materials, especially exposed concrete, and it creates a sense of permanence and strength. I appreciate how it avoids unnecessary ornamentation. Instead, it focuses on pure form and function. For me, personally, brutalist architecture is not just style, but also a statement. It changes us to see beauty in roughness and solidity.
Yes, I do. As someone who enjoys playing with forms, yet enjoys symmetry at the same time. Brutalism is such a compatible architecture style. Although it may seem very restricted and monotonous, it is actually very easy to think outside of the box and play with forms that can give out the most unique silhouettes for an exemplary building or structure.
Well, I do see myself investing in this style, but not really too much. I take it as a personal challenge because it really helps me brainstorm new ideas when it comes to just using basically just three materials and the knowledge that I have when it comes to the site that we are designing. But with the current trends and the history behind brutalism here in the country, I think that we have outgrown it and we have found better solutions for the today's standards. For now, I see brutalism as a medium to learn how different eras or different periods of time see beauty and modernism.
Yes, definitely. A way of balance. As a perspective architect, I recognize the need for brutalism's honesty and strength, particularly in institutional structures, cultural centers, and spaces that must feel grounded and monumental. However, I would adapt its concept to our current situation by incorporating modern environmental methods, lighter materials, human-centered design. This way, brutalism's forceful presence may be rendered more friendly and relevant in today's demands.
The Philippines is such a colorful country. Even though brutalism usually has a bare concrete finish, um, the versatility of forms and the efficiency of its space saving elements fits well within our country. Considering the conditions of highly populated areas with poor urban planning, incorporating this type of architecture with um, might help with it and could potentially contribute to solving our problem with congested areas.
Yeah, so when it comes to suitability, I think the brutalist architecture here in the country really applies a lot of tropical design solutions because it is derived from the design of the Bahay Kubo and Bahay na Bato. For example, like the natural light and air could enter large opening and open spaces, making it very, very comfortable for the people inside.
Yes, but only specific ways. On the other hand, brutalism used raw concrete appropriate for a tropical climate because of its long-lasting and readily available locally. Many prominent Filipino buildings from 1960s to 1980s demonstrate how brutalism can create lasting cultural landmarks. Pure brutalism, on the other hand, can struggle in the Philippines due to heat, maintenance issues, perception of being harsh or uninviting to truly suit our country. Brutalism ideas should be softened with greenery, natural ventilation, shading, and incorporate local materials.
Loved by architects, criticized by many as harsh and uninviting, brutalism has always divided opinion. Yet beyond the weight of its concrete lies something enduring. Despite criticism, brutalism's legacy is alive. Its principles echo in today's minimalist and sustainable architecture, carrying forward its vision of honesty and permanence. For brutalism is more than concrete. It is history, memory, and identity etched into our cities, shaping the way we live, reminding us of a time when architecture dared to be bold. This is not just a story of buildings, but of a nation searching for its form, its voice, its place in the modern world. And as long as these structures stand, so too does the reminder. Progress may wither, styles may change, but the spirit of brutalism endures.